Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. It's week 16 here, so I'm going to help you guys get through all the starts and sits. So I'll go through every single game this week, all 16 of them. Of course, no teams on bye. Do what I can to just go player by player and tell you guys what I think of them this week and whether or not they should be in your lineups. Hopefully, you guys made it this far. We're in the semifinals for most people, which means you got to win 2 more games to come home with your championship. Start sit decisions matter way more than ever at this time of the year, so want to make sure we get everything right. I'll do my best to help you guys out. We'll cover the final 8 games tomorrow as well, and hopefully get you guys ready to roll and get you guys some wins, get you guys into championship week. So if you have any questions, any specific start sit questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to give you guys feedback there. Hopefully give you guys good advice and get you guys a win. And yeah, that being said, sit back and enjoy. Starting us off on Thursday night, we've got the Broncos going to LA to play the Los Angeles Chargers. Kind of not a lot of fantasy options here, to be honest, though. For the Broncos, Courtland Sutton's really the only Bronco I want to play. This is a low over-under, 42 points, I believe. Not a game that the Broncos are expected to win, so they've got an implied point total of about 20 points right now. Not expecting there to be a whole lot of fireworks in this one. So Sutton feels like a must start. The Chargers are missing their second corner, so Sutton should be able to do okay here. But I don't want to stream Bo Nix. I'm not going to get cute with Vele or Marvin Mims or any of that. For the Chargers, Ladd McConkey, really he's the only one I want to play as well. Again, the Broncos defense is fantastic. Both Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss will be suiting up as well. So Ladd McConkey's really the only player I feel like confident in playing here. Stone Smart, desperation tight end play if you really need to. I really think we can find a better option, but if you're desperate, you could certainly go there, although I'd prefer Brenton Strange would be a better streaming option for me if you had to go to the waiver wire this week. So I hope you can do better than Smart. Quentin Johnston, he's a low-end flex play if you need him, but I hope you're in a deep league if you're going to consider playing him. He's always obviously got a shot to put up a big play and a touchdown at some point, but it just feels really tough to predict when those big games are coming. In a must-win game for us in fantasy here, I don't want to put Quentin Johnston out there against a really tough Broncos defense, and honestly, it's possible that he gets the Patrick Surtain treatment, and that would be horrendous. I don't really want to play either running back or quarterback here. The Broncos don't know which running back you even could play. It's McLaughlin, it's Estime, it's Javonte. The answer is it's none of them. We're not going to go there. Again, not a lot of points expected here, so I don't want to play either quarterback. And for the Chargers, Vidal played 67% of the snaps last week, so if you really had to, he'd be the one. But I can't do it. He hasn't had a single good game all year. I'm not playing a Chargers running back until I see something, and it's probably not going to happen until the end of the year here. Next up, make note of this. We actually have 2 games on Saturday this week, so keep an eye on that. We got to have a weird sort of trickle in of fantasy points over the next several weeks. We've obviously got games on Christmas next week as well, so there's going to be a lot of sort of weird time frame games. So just make sure you're getting your lineup set. Make sure you're saving your flex spot for later on in the week as well. So I always tell you guys with Thursday, make sure you don't utilize your flex spots on Thursday. Same thing for these Saturday games. Don't use your flex spots early. Give yourself flexibility in case you have a late injury. So any of the players in the first 3 games we're talking about here, make sure you have them in the running back or wide receiver spot. Moving on here, we got the Texans at the Chiefs. For the Texans, Nico Collins, he's in. He's just too dominant. I only had 17 yards last week, but 2 touchdowns. He's a red zone threat for them. You're playing him. Joe Mixon, I keep an eye on this one. He got rolled up on a little bit last week. Sort of the same injury that happened to him earlier on in the year, although he seems to think he's going to be active. There was a report earlier today of him, going on air saying, yeah, he thinks he's going to be there on Saturday for them. But this is a team for the Texans that really don't have anything to play for. They're not going to have a bye. They can't really do a whole lot in terms of what their playoff seeding ends up being. So the Texans would be smart, actually, to give Mixon the rest if he's not 100%. So you're playing him if he plays, but just keep an eye on it. It's a bad matchup. I don't think he's going to be 100%. So I don't love that by any means, but it's tough to bench him. And at least it's an early game this week. So you're playing him if you have him. I'm not going to play C.J. Stroud or Tank Dell. This is a really tough matchup. I just can't trust either one of those guys there. For the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes has practiced in full each of the first 2 days this week for them, so it sounds like he's trending towards playing. I wouldn't start him. The Texans' defense has been phenomenal. Mahomes has not been phenomenal, especially for fantasy, and it's just tough. Not a game I expect to see a ton of points in. Mahomes not being 100%, I would not really want to be playing him at all in fantasy this week. Travis Kelce, he's in. He's a tight end. I know it's been rough, but very few tight ends have the upside he does, so you're playing him every single week. I know it sucked, but I think it's still okay to play him. For the Chiefs receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, both feel like low-end flex plays. You're going to need a big player, a touchdown out of one of them, and it certainly could happen. It was great to see Worthy be super involved last week, so I feel okay about that, but I think you can kind of do better unless you're in a deeper league. And then Isaiah Pacheco, low-end running back 2. I don't want to play him. It's just we saw a little bit more Kareem Hunt than I would have liked to see last week, so I think you can do better, but if you're really desperate, Pacheco would be the running back to play, and he is an option if you really need him. Next up, we got another Saturday night game here. Actually, it's midday Saturday here, but the Steelers at the Ravens, and what should be a really fun game. If the Steelers win this game, they win the division. If they don't, the division's kind of wide open down to the last 2 weeks. So a lot to play for both these teams this week. I think it's going to result in George Pickens suiting up for this one. I think they sort of are giving him the rest he needed, giving him the 2 weeks off, really sort of setting him up to play in this game because of how much it means for their season and playoff seeding. So I think George Pickens is going to be active in this one, and I would be playing him. The Ravens' pass defense has improved lately. It's not the bottom five unit that it was over the first like 8 or 9 weeks of the season. So just keep an eye on that. Like the Ravens defense has improved, so it's not like it's a smash matchup. I know you're going to look in your fantasy lineups. You're going to see a bunch of green next to those guys. You're going to see them as like a bottom five matchup over the course of the season, or top five matchup over the course of the season. Not necessarily the case. Also remember this was a low scoring game the last time these two teams met. So I would expect a lower scoring game in this one. It's going to be a grinded out kind of game for both these teams. That being said, Pat Freiermuth, solid streaming option if you need him. Probably need a touchdown for that to come through, but he's got a touchdown in 3 straight weeks. Russ is playing well, so I feel okay with that if you need it. That being said, I'm not going to stream Russ this week. Again, the matchup doesn't make me super excited. It's in Baltimore. Steelers are probably going to lose this game, although I think it'll be more competitive than the 6.5 point spread you got there. But I just don't really want to play Russ in this one. For the Ravens, Lamar, Derrick Henry, they're must starts. I don't need to go into that. I think Lamar obviously struggled against the Steelers in his career, but there's no way you're benching him. He's been a monster. Zay Flowers, solid wide receiver 3 for me. It's pretty safe floor there with how PPR, how involved he is in a PPR format. But Bateman's sort of getting used downfield more, so like the big plays aren't really there for Flowers lately. So you need him to like have a bunch of yards after catch for a big play. You're still playing him, but it's just I wouldn't expect him to be the reason you win this week. Probably starting Mark Andrews as well. He's been too good lately. There's no way you're benching him. Bateman, really the only question mark for me. I'd prefer not to play him. Again, this isn't a game I'm expecting to see a lot of points in. So for a guy like Bateman, where you need the big play, you need the touchdown for that to come through, I'd look for guys that are in the same situation but in higher over-under situations just because you got more opportunities for that to work out. I didn't list him, but Justice Hill, if you're really desperate and need to, I could see him catching 3 or 4 passes in this one if you need it, but like he's a low end running back option. I wouldn't want to flex him, but if you're like really banged up at running back, need to play him as your RB2, I could see you doing worse than that. So it's an option if you need to go there. Next up, we got the Giants at the Falcons in what should be a really fun game here. We're going to get the first game for Michael Penix Jr., really hoping that he can elevate this Atlanta offense. But for the Giants, Malik Neighbors, he's in. Tim Boyle really sort of hyper-targeted him. Malik Neighbors seemed really thankful about how well he played last week. Obviously, the Giants got shellacked by the Ravens, but Neighbors got far more involved after Boyle came in, so I feel pretty good about Neighbors against what's not a very good Falcons secondary. Tyrone Tracy, low-end running back 2 for me. It sucked seeing how involved Devin Singletary was last week. It kind of makes it really hard to trust either one of those guys, but if you need to play Tracy, you can, although I'd prefer to look elsewhere if you have better options. Like I mentioned earlier, Michael Penix, he should elevate this Falcons offense. The main thing here is just that they weren't passing the ball before, and they will now, and it's not like they were scoring a lot of points either. So it's not going to be a very high volume game. The Falcons will win this game easily by leaning on the run game, so I wouldn't be streaming Penix or anything, but I feel good about London as a solid wide receiver too. You can play Mooney as a flex option. You're going to need that deep ball to come through, but Michael Penix does actually have a really pretty deep ball if you watch him at all at UW, so you can certainly expect there to be a couple shots downfield to Mooney in this game. Hopefully 1 or 2 of them come through. Bijan, I don't need to tell you, he's an auto start. Kyle Pitts, I wouldn't play him. Again, the Giants are actually a pretty tough matchup for opposing tight ends, and I just don't really feel like this is going to be a high enough passing volume game where I want to be going towards Kyle Pitts. Same with Ray. I'm not going to play McLeod. If you're really desperate at running back, I think Tyler Algier maybe has an okay shot of scoring in this one, just because this should be a game the Falcons win by multiple scores. If they really want to lean on the run game, make it easy for Penix, I could see that happening, but it's a really desperate situation there. I hope you have better options, but if you're like down in the weeds playing those nasty players, I think that Algier, you could do worse than. Next up, we got the Lions at the Bears. It's outside. It's kind of big news here for the Lions because it's just the second time all season that the Lions have had to play outside, which does actually impact things quite a bit. There's a lot of narrative in the offseason about how Jared Goff plays a lot better indoors than outdoors. That's played out because this offense has been phenomenal so far this season, but just keep an eye on that. I wouldn't expect this to be a game where the Lions go out there and hang 40 on the Bears. That being said, Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're must-starts. Jahmyr Gibbs might end up being the RB1 in fantasy this week and probably should be, just without David Montgomery there. Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, they're low-end options at their respective positions. I kind of think you can do better. Again, this Bears pass defense is pretty solid. I don't expect this to be a game, like as I mentioned earlier, where the Lions are going to go out there and put up 30 or 40 points. They'll probably win like 27-14 or something like that. So, I mean, you could do worse, obviously, but I just don't expect this to be a game where Jared Goff's going to throw super well. I think we're going to see a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs, some Craig Reynolds. I don't want to play those guys if I can. I don't want to play Jared Goff either, just because, again, I think there are better matchups out there, better streaming options. I think you can do better there. The Bears are interesting, though. The Lions have been absolutely horrendous on defense, and it makes sense. They got 14 defensive players on IR, including some of their best players. You got Aiden Hutchinson. They're missing a lot of really good players right now, so it makes DJ Moore and Keenan Allen feel like really solid starting options. DeAndre Swift, a solid low-end running back, too. We just saw James Cook put up a monster performance against them. I think DeAndre Swift could certainly do that. Caleb Williams, he's a dart throw if you need to go there. Like, there's a very wide range of outcomes, but there is this scenario here where Caleb Williams goes out there and throws for 303 against this Lions defense. If you're down bad at the quarterback spot, I could see that being an option. And then last, we got Rome Odunze. He's an option as well if you need him. Again, like a low-end flex option, there's a lot of upside for him if you need it. Like if you're a heavy underdog, I could see a world where Odunze goes out there and has 4 for 120 and a touchdown, but it's tough to predict, so I don't necessarily want to advise playing him, but if you're down bad, if you really need him, if you're in a deeper league, Rome Odunze could be an option for you if you needed him. Next game is going to be the Cardinals at the Panthers. I'm telling you right now, Trey McBride scoring a touchdown this week. It's going to be the week it happens. So the Cardinals are making a big effort to make that happen. They manufactured a play for him last week. Sort of did like one of those underhand tosses like the Chiefs do for Kelsey all the time. Got tackled at the one. Kyler Murray went on record this week saying he was going to score a touchdown soon against the Panthers. I think they can make it happen. So Trey McBride's going to score a touchdown this week. And I kind of think the Cardinals offense is going to bounce back in general. So Kyler Murray, James Conner, Marvin Harrison, and Trey McBride would all be in my lineups. Marvin Harrison, not a must start if there are better options out there, but like I view Marvin Harrison as like a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2, so he'd be a tough guy to bench for me this week. For the Panthers, Adam Thielen, Chuba Hubbard, they're must-starts. Not a lot to talk about there with how hyper involved they are. If you got to go deeper than that, I think Jalen Coker is a solid flex option if you need him. Xavier Legette is week to week with a groin injury, so I wouldn't anticipate him playing here. Bryce Young's been playing better of late, although he didn't really play very well last week against Dallas. Cardinals are not a defense that scares me, and I think Coker's actually a pretty good player, so if you need to flex Coker, you can do that this week. Next, we had another pretty fun game here with the Rams going to New York to play the Jets. Kind of think this game is going to be a shootout. Neither defense has been playing extremely well lately, and the offenses have been playing pretty well. So I feel good about pretty much every player involved in this game. For the Rams, Matthew Stafford, he's a streaming option if you need him. I hope you have better options. I don't really want to play Matthew Stafford, but if you needed to, you could certainly do worse. Kyron, Kupp, and Puka, they're all in for sure. There's no way I'm benching either one of those three. I feel good about Cooper Kupp. I know we goosed you guys last week, but the Jets, they do have Sauce Gardner. They're really only healthy at one cornerback spot right now. They're missing DJ Reed and their third corner, so Sauce Gardner could potentially shadow Puka. I know they move Puka all over the field. It's tough to really shadow him, but like Cooper Kupp should have a pretty solid game here. I think this will be a high-scoring game, and I'm not going away from Kupp in this one. For the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, really solid streaming option as well. I would play him over Matthew Stafford. In one league, I've got him, Purdy, and Tua. I'm going back and forth on it all between who I want to start. I'm kind of leaning Tua right now, but like I feel like I might pivot to Aaron Rodgers there. So I view Aaron Rodgers as an option, even if like there are much worse options there. I know he's been up and down all year, but the last 2 weeks have been great. This defense is playing bad, so if you need to go with Rodgers, you certainly can. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, they're must-starts, believe it or not. They're both top 12 wide receivers in the season. I know the Jets' season's been a disaster, but at least those two are getting it done for fantasy. And I feel okay about Breece Hall in this one, too. I know Braylon Allen left the game early with an injury last week, so I feel a little bit more confident about Breece being back to his usual workload 1 week further removed from the injury. No reported setbacks right now, so if you need to play Breece Hall, you can. And you kind of got lucky last week with the 1 yard touchdown at the end of the game, but I think Breece Hall is a solid, like high-end running back, too, and I wouldn't really be looking to bench him if I have him. And the last game we'll touch on this week is going to be the Eagles at the Commanders. The Eagles are kind of quietly really banged up on offense, and I really need A.J. Brown to play. My biggest buy-in league, I've got A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts in my semifinals, so really crossing my fingers here that A.J. Brown suits up in this one. But if all of them play, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, they're must-starts, and that would make Devonta Smith like a high-end flex option for me. I know Smith had a good game last week, but he's been a little bit too hot and cold for me to advise him as like a must-start. You're still probably playing him, but I could see teams that are just super stacked at wide receiver considering benching him. If A.J. Brown does miss this game, Devonta Smith, he's an auto start. I probably wouldn't go away from Jalen Hurts, even though the Commanders' defense is okay. Jalen Hurts, he'll run the ball enough. They'll push him into the end zone once or twice. I feel okay about Jalen Hurts, even if A.J. Brown doesn't play, but the ceiling really does come down in that scenario. For the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, he's in my lineup. Wouldn't be worried about that. So would McLaurin. There's no way I'm really benching either one of those guys. Brian Robinson, he's a running back too for me. The Eagles are a phenomenal defense right now against the pass and the run, so it's tough. This could end up being a really low-scoring game, which kind of sucks. You'd be hoping for this to end up being a shootout, and I could see it shifting that way, and divisional games are weird, but normally they're weird towards the side of just both teams know each other too well for either one to do a lot on offense. So I think I don't want to get cute with any of the ancillary pieces here. It's going to be Daniels, McLaurin, and just Brian Robinson for the Eagles. I didn't mention it earlier too, but just keep an eye on Kenneth Gainwell. Saquon Barkley kind of left the game for a little bit early last week, came back, didn't look like himself. He's kind of playing it coy, saying he's healthy, saying there's no injury. But if Saquon were to, for whatever reason, be like a surprise late scratch late in the week, like he's a candidate for that to happen. I still think he's going to play. I wouldn't really be worried about it if you have Saquon, but just keep an eye on Gainwell. He could be a really solid option if Saquon were to miss here. So that'll do it for this part 1 video here of the starts and sits. Went over the first 8 games of week 16, so I'll cover the final 8 games in the video that will come out tomorrow. If you guys have any specific start sit questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to give you guys my advice. Hopefully it's good, and hopefully we can get you guys a win with the semifinals here. Stay tuned for the video tomorrow. That way I'll cover any game that I didn't touch on this one, and hopefully Thursday Night Football treats you well. Hopefully you guys can get a hot start. So if you made it this far in the video, just give it a thumbs up. It helps me out, and I'll catch you with the next one, guys. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.